was said that we are mirrors whose brightness is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. And you know, the funny thing about this story is that after Jesus speaks these words to Nicodemus, these most powerful words, we don't hear Nicodemus' reaction to Jesus' teaching. He's questioning Jesus. He's not really quite getting it. And then Jesus lays this on him. And I just have to wonder if in these words, in John 3:16, the words that come after, I just have to wonder if that was the answer that Nicodemus was looking for. So I leave you with this thought today. We've talked about this conversation with God, this conversation that Jesus and Nicodemus had. And it's a conversation that evolved. But at the beginning of this conversation, we saw that really they were having two different conversations. Nicodemus, on one hand, focused on the very physical. Jesus focused on the very spiritual. What about our conversations? Which are they focused on? Our conversations with God and our conversations with each other. Do our conversations with God focus on what is physical? Focus on our jobs and our homes and our cars and the things that we possess, the material items that we pursue? Are the conversations with our friends focused on who has the bigger one of each of those things? The nicer one, the newer one? Or do our conversations focus on the spiritual? What we can't take with us when we go? Friends, if our conversations with God, our conversations with one another, if we just have a spiritual conversation with God for 1 hour a week, if we're just focused on the spiritual realm just for this 1 hour every week, gosh, that's only 1/24th of this day. That's 1/168th of your week. I had to check with my dad, the math professor, to make sure those numbers were right after the first service. I was a math major, but it's kind of like Homer Simpson said, you know, every new thing you learn pushes out something old that you once knew. So I was kind of there doing my multiplication this morning, but it's just about 1/2 of 1%. If 1/2 of 1% of your conversations are focused on the spiritual realm, are those priorities straight? Because it's the spiritual realm that's eternal. It's a spiritual world that lasts forever. It's a spiritual world that Jesus was pointing us to. In Jesus Christ, our physical understanding, what we can see, comes together with the spiritual world that He is leading us to. And it reminds me of the baptism that we celebrated earlier with young Malala. This water is physical. It's something we can see. We can touch this water. And I'm not going to tell you this water came from a holy magic source. I'm not going to tell you it has healing powers. Some other preachers, some other place might tell you that. But it's what this physical water represents that is spiritual, that we focus on. It is the means of grace represented in this water that is holy to us. The prevenient grace of God that knits us together in our mother's womb, represented by something that is physical. But in the spiritual, it takes on a whole new meaning, a whole new value, a whole new purpose. In the spiritual, this water marks the beginning of a journey and a life with Christ. A new life that is not marked by the boundaries of this world, but a new life, a new faith, and a new hope that lasts forever. A life that is in its essence spiritual. A life that is in Jesus. Friends, I pray that as you go this week, that you don't look at just what is physical and see, touch, and smell, and sense, but that you go